Preventing and managing transboundary crises requires a level of coordination across many levels and between bodies that are often loosely coupled or even completely independent from each other. So how effectively does the EU interact with its member states? And what effect overall does this have on the capacity of the EU to manage transboundary crises? TransCrisis looked at the EU's response to crises in 5 different policy domains: banking, electricity transmission networks, youth unemployment, invasive alien species, and migration from outside the EU. We found that the challenges for the EU were threefold. First, there was the challenge of who should be in charge of decision-making once a transboundary crisis had occurred. Should decisions be made by European institutions or representatives of member states? How prescriptive should EU-level provisions be, or should member states be granted more autonomy in addressing particular crises? Second, there was the challenge of information gathering. Information coming from a range of sources is inevitably inconsistent. It is also often influenced by local or national factors, be it information about the viability of a certain bank or the effectiveness of a youth unemployment scheme. How can the EU know what information can be relied upon when it comes to forming a coordinated response to a crisis? The third challenge was one of behaviour modification. What could be done if a member state lacked either the capacity or motivation, or both, to fully act on their commitments and implement EU provisions? Our research established just how important EU provisions were in the exercise of core state powers, but also how dependent EU policies were on their execution by national bureaucracies. But as the financial crisis has depleted the resources of national-level institutions and as new regimes are being put in place, the capacity of the EU to deal with transboundary crises is in question. Addressing this is essential for improving not just the effectiveness of the EU's response to transboundary crises, but also its legitimacy in the eyes of citizens. Click on a link to explore another theme.